Going to go through a couple of quick housekeeping matters. Votes are expected sometime in the next 30 minutes. We hope to get through Mr. Cummings and my opening statements and some of yours before that happens. But when votes are called, we'll recess for the duration of the votes and reconvene thereafter. My colleagues aren't here yet, but hopefully staff will let them know. One of our witnesses has a hard stop at 3 o'clock today, so in the interest of fairness to all the members, I'm going to be uncharacteristically enforcing the 5-minute rule in hopes that my colleagues will be uncharacteristic in following the 5-minute rule. And to our audience, we welcome your attendance and interest in today's hearing. Housing Committee rules prohibit any manifestation of approval or disapproval of these proceedings, including the display of objects and signs. And you may be assured this will be your only warning. The census is critical to apportioning the most fundamental of rights, which is the right to be counted, and therefore, subject to other qualifications, the right to vote. One person, one vote is embedded in the fabric of our jurisprudence. The census is also critical in the efficient apportionment of government resources and services. Acquiring meaningful and accurate data helps make the sometimes tough decisions on how best to allot those things that are in limited supply. As we have noted before, few things are as eminently predictable as the decennial census. It comes every 10 years, whether we're ready for it or not. The 2020 census is entering an important period. The 2018 test is underway, and even with the significance of that, final operations for the 2020 census have appropriately begun. The Census Bureau is already conducting the local update of census addresses and in-office address canvassing. It's important to understand the status of those projects. We also need to examine the readiness of the IT systems, which are so indispensable to the 2020 count. The accuracy of the 2020 census rests in large measure on the successful deployment of IT systems. The 2018 test plays a vital role in assessing these symptoms, and the realistic expectation is that any and all flaws will be addressed quickly. We'll compare today what we hear from the Bureau with the GAO's assessment of the IT systems. The gap between the Bureau's self-assessment and the GAO's independent review, if any, will necessarily raise concerns and warrant further exploration. We understand there is communication between Census and GAO, but this communication must be a priority so the 2020 census meets or exceeds our appropriately lofty expectations. Funding remains critical to an accurate census. Our colleagues on the Appropriations Committee provided fiscal year 2018 funding for the 2020 census, even above the requested levels. We expect the census to be good stewards of these resources, particularly in a time when public trust in public spending is not high and other important, albeit perhaps not constitutionally specific programs are being impacted. The Census Bureau and the Department of Commerce need to provide our committee with their spending plan for the fiscal year 2018 funding. We look forward to working with today's witnesses and with the Appropriations Committee to ensure proper funding is also available in fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2020. The census is constitutionally significant. It is mentioned with particularity in the jurisdiction of this committee. It is relied upon by the governmental entities and is directly related to the fundamental right to vote and for those rights and for those votes to be counted fairly and proportionally. So not only this committee, but Congress as a whole takes its responsibility to review progress seriously. There may be differences in certain areas, but each of us shares the common objective of a count we can have confidence in come 2020. And with that, I'll recognize the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Cummings.